You have a right to have your own opinions and your own stories. So don't be afraid to share them in a way that feels authentic to you. I want to just encourage you to look back a couple days or a couple weeks, think of the conversations that you've had. Maybe you're working with clients, maybe you've got customers or patients or people who are opening up to you and talking maybe about their problems or their dreams and what they ultimately want to achieve, right? This is the beautiful part of a podcast, right? So I'm going to give you a personal example. I'm going to share a story with you. So I coach a lot of clients each week, okay? And there was a reoccurring theme that kept coming up. So many people were afraid to post because they needed the perfect backdrop, the perfect hair, the perfect lipstick. They just wanted it to look so good. And what was happening was that was a roadblock in front of them actually showing up and doing the work. And a lot of it came from a fear of rejection. So they were blaming it on things like needing their hair to be perfect or needing the perfect lighting or whatever. But it was ultimately a fear of rejection. And so if they just didn't show up, or they had to order the ring light on Amazon, get a new DSLR camera, get all of these things, then they wouldn't have to show up and actually film the thing. And so I was on this group call and I heard that come up once. Then I'm on multiple one-on-one coaching sessions and people are struggling with the same thing. They're afraid to post content because of blank. There was a lot of fear involved there. They had a limiting belief, something. And so that fear was what needed to be spoken to. That it was like this hidden thing that was like this demon holding them back from actually doing what they wanted, which for a lot of them, content creation was the edge of their comfort zone that needed to be broken in order to meet their next level in their business and in their life, right? So my entire episode 223, if you go back, was created because of this concern coming up time and time again on different coaching sessions. And so now the beautiful part about this is I have a resource to send people who are struggling with this. That's a podcast. It's taking what other people are currently struggling with, you hearing that as the coach, as the speaker, as the content creator, and then you're going to go and you're going to film a long podcast episode, a long form piece of content, and then that content can be chopped up into smaller bits for reels, for shorts, for TikToks, and then that long episode acts as a resource where you can then send your clients and your traffic back to where they can go and they can get the full experience and hopefully that same breakthrough that you had or that you are hoping that they achieve by partaking in your content. That's the idea of a podcast. That's what it's created for, right? And so if we can just have value on our hearts when we go and we film this long form, we can have them inwardly reflect. I believe it was that episode actually, I asked people to pause me and to actually journal or think through the questions that I was asking them, because I can be speaking to you all day long, but it's only in your intaking of that information and you really working with your intuition in your mind that you're going to find what's ultimately the solution for yourself. And so your podcast is going to act as a way to open up that conversation in their own heads and help guide them towards their own solution. Right? So I encourage you right now, if you want to pause me, go ahead and pause me. I want you to reflect back on the past couple of days, the past couple of weeks, and start to think of the common threads that are coming up with your clients and how you could begin to create content, whether you have a podcast or you don't. You can start to create content, either sharing your story, sharing your why, sharing the struggles and how you overcame them. And that's going to be what ultimately provides them the most value. Okay. So what I do is if I'm on a coaching session, for example, and I'm hearing someone discuss something like, let me just pull it up right now. I'm hearing someone discuss, okay, how do you carry yourself on camera? How do you get the lighting right? How do you position your camera? How do you jump right into the hook and have good quality things? And I could film an entire piece of content just on that. And that's now in my brain dump section. So I'm going to do that because that was a question that kept coming up. Right? A couple of my clients were saying they're trying to go fast. They want to go really fast and they just want to get there. And so I could create an entire podcast episode on how it's okay if we go slow, so long as we're going in the right direction, and that going fast doesn't matter. Going fast is actually leaving more room for error, and we just want to make sure that we're putting one foot in front of the other and going, right? So I'm taking notes is what I'm trying to get at. If I have a client who brings something up, I'm making a note because I want to create content specifically for that one person. Why do I do this? Because I know for a fact that if that one person was struggling with it, the truth is other people are too. And so what I'm then able to do is use their language to turn that into content that other people are going to understand, because then I'm speaking their language too. I'm not speaking my own language that I understand that might be technobabble or they might not get it. I'm using the words of the person who's struggling. Yeah? So that's how we're able to come up with the content that we can then share stories about, right? And I encourage you, right now, you're probably going through something. Maybe it feels like you want to post, maybe it doesn't. But I encourage you, this was a client that I was speaking to the other day. He was saying that he was showing up and singing on his Instagram stories. And before that, he had never really put his face out there on social media before. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. But then when he shared the why behind the singing, why ultimately he was doing that, to get himself out of his comfort zone and then to also encourage other people to do it too, that's the story that I wanted to hear. That was really cool, because I was like, oh, he's not just singing on his Instagram stories, which is cool. But no, he's doing this because it scares the shit out of him. And he wants to inspire others to leap, even if it's scary, because he knows that on the other side of that comfort zone is his next level. And so as you see how that story, granted, I don't share it as good as him. It's his story, not mine. He could elaborate so much bigger on that. Maybe why he was scared. Maybe what in his life made him that way. What thoughts he had around doing it until he just ripped off the Band-Aid and decided to do it. But it's that story of the why behind him posting. That's where the magic is. That's where people are like, shit, this guy is so cool. I'm going to click follow. I'm going to follow this journey, this experience, because I want to learn how to do that. But now you've just revealed that it's scary for you. So that goes from being the perfectly curated content profile to then being real, being vulnerable, being authentic, right? We're peeling back the curtain and we're sharing the story behind how you found out about the thing, right? That's where the magic's at. Okay. And along this road, right, we're crafting engaging content. We're sharing value, right? Value is top of mind. Okay. So when we're sharing these stories, a lot of times people want to share stories that maybe the wound's still open. Okay. Or maybe you're scared to start sharing your story because there are a lot of things that you don't want to share or you don't feel comfortable sharing just yet. Give yourself permission to not share those things. There's probably a lot of wounds that you have that are healed already, that you can share. You don't need to go sharing things that you don't feel called to share yet. That's your journey. Maybe in a year you will be ready. Maybe in a week you'll be ready. But if you're not ready now, that's okay. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't share any of your story. Share the parts that feel like they're ready to come out. Okay? So don't share things you're not ready. Don't oversell. Don't lack authenticity or be insensitive to people. Also, don't name drop, right? If you had something horrible happen to you as a child, granted, if you want to name drop, it's your show. You do what you want. But maybe leave their name out and just share from your perspective if you're worried about stepping on toes or hurting anyone. You have a right to have your own opinions and your own stories. So don't be afraid to share them in a way that feels authentic to you. Okay, so really the idea here is we're really listening. We're listening in the marketplace to what our clients are struggling with, what people in the world are struggling with. We're looking for gaps that exist content-wise, and we're just beginning to fill them. We're showing up as we feel inspired, whether or not we're in a studio, right? If you're feeling inspired, whip out your phone, even if your makeup's not on. There's filters for that now, right? Okay, or just roll without it. Just go with it. When you're feeling inspired, that's the best time to film. Okay, don't wait for everything to be perfect, because then it's probably not going to happen. I've talked about that in an episode before, in that episode that I was just talking about. Okay, so go back and listen to that one if you're struggling with that. It was like 223, I believe. Okay. And then encourage your listeners to really share their feedback in your content creation, or even ask for specific things that they want to hear more of, right? I'm going to ask you to do that right now. If you haven't already done so, go wherever you're listening to this podcast and leave a rating and review. That way I can hear from you. I don't want this just to be one-sided. Please share, what your main takeaway was, or maybe if you want to hear something different or something new, or you have a question, go ahead, put it in the rating and review, and I will address that in a coming episode. So take 30 seconds out of your day. What that does is gives the algorithm a boost to show this episode to more people. So click the button below, leave a rating and review, and I just can't wait to hear from you. It means the absolute world. So thank you so much for tuning in. Just a reminder, just show up authentically, do what you feel called to do and what's on your heart, and just allow yourself to be inspired by the questions coming up by your clients to just solve that problem for more people and help guide them to their own answer.